Hello again, everyone. I'm Eric Sperling. Thank you so much for joining All in Education's second season of Sepas. So happy to have back on the stage Jeff Zatino, Research and Policy Director at All in Education, and of course Stephanie Parra, Executive Director at All in Education. A little bit about the organization. All in Education is a local nonprofit organization that exists to build an Arizona where all communities have access to opportunity and justice. Now, their work is focused on strengthening the Latino community by closing the representation gap to build power, influence, and authority across Arizona boardrooms and classrooms. Now, through Sepas, All in Education has been working to bridge their advocacy efforts to be inclusive of multiple factors outside of the classroom that are impacting the educational outcomes of students. They're calling these factors the social determinants of education. Now, the focus of Sepas is on having real, thought-provoking conversations with leaders and community members and identifying those solutions to work towards creating meaningful changes in the systems meant to serve our communities. Now, this season has exclusively focused on the issue of poverty, the social determinant of education that, through an analysis, All in Education found was the leading factor that had the greatest negative impact on the welfare of families, communities, students, and schools. So today's episode marks the last of season 2, and we'll focus on bringing together concepts from all the topics discussed throughout the season, and most importantly, what All in Education is doing to elevate and collaborate on the solutions needed to advance student outcomes. So with that intro, let's go to our panel. And Stephanie, let's start with you.
Yep.
So throughout the season, we have discussed different themes that communities with high concentrations of low-income families face. So through the work at All in Education, how would you assess the current state of education in our community and then the current state of education's impact on poverty?
Yeah. So happy to be here for this final episode and this wrap. So the state of education in Arizona and like across the country, we are facing some of our biggest challenges. You know, what we've talked about is the number that the pandemic did on us. When it came to academic achievement, we saw some of the slides back on any academic growth back 20 years. And so Arizona is not unique. That is a national trend that we're seeing across the country. We also are grappling with some very high levels of chronic absenteeism. So if kids are not coming to school on a regular basis, you can see how that, this cycle, it's going to impact their attainment rates. And so the issue of poverty is very real and very present in schools, and it has been, right? We know, one thing I've always said is, as educators, we have been saying this forever, is that poverty is the greatest barrier to educational attainment. And so we have to have very real and honest conversations about what we are going to do to build that future, the future of education, because we can't go back to what we had because it wasn't working for every single child. There were systemic barriers and systemic gaps and opportunities inside of the system, and so we want to work to address that.
So Jeff, here we are, we're closing out the season. It's nice we have some community leaders live in the audience today. We have a lot of community leaders who watched every episode this season. One of the episodes, you discussed the work that you guys are doing with Roosevelt School District. So you're focused there on building a collaborative partnership between the district, parents, and the community. What were you seeing as the main contributing factor to the gap in student outcomes based on the needs of the community?
Yeah, definitely. I think the gaps in the Roosevelt School District mirror what we saw in our data and our research, right? So for our last MAPA, we did a correlational analysis of what are the main factors that are depressing academic outcome numbers within our population or Latino students, Latino and BIPOC students. And we found poverty, but more than just poverty, the social determinants of education, right? So nutrition, housing stability, safety, access to healthcare, all of those things contributing to these barriers that our students and our schools are facing. But one thing that I think kind of showed a bigger gap was that there was a lack of a framework to understand how poverty impacted education. So that's why we kind of brought together the concepts originated in public health, but borrowing from that concept of social determinants of education, now putting the onus back on the community leaders, community institutions, nonprofits, service providers, and saying that we're all in a community to educate our children. So that was one of the biggest gaps. Another gap was family engagement and the importance of family engagement. And not in the sense of sending a flyer home through a backpack, but having authentic relationships that build upon our community's leadership and welcomes their voice and their leadership in the school board, interactions with superintendents and interactions with principals and teachers, a concept that we're calling shared accountability that increases a parent's agency at home, but also in the school to make sure that parents are holding school systems and school system leaders accountable to creating the education system that our children deserve.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out one of the gaps was actually the framework. Like, you identified the problem, but the framework wasn't there. Stephanie, education, we talked about it on the show, key driver of social mobility. Something's been continuously called out here. Arizona is a state that promotes school of choice. So if families have access to choose, then why should we be concerned about turning around the schools that aren't performing?
Yeah, so I think there's, we value and appreciate school choice and parents having the freedom to choose what school works for their children and their children's unique needs. And so want to continue to support that. But I think the reality of what we've seen is that there is a false choice opportunity, right, in Arizona. So not all choice is created equal. And when the majority of our students are going to their neighborhood public schools, and those neighborhood public schools are under-resourced and understaffed and under-supported, those are not high quality choice options for our kids. And so what are we doing as leaders in the education system and as a community to ensure that every single school across every single neighborhood in Arizona is a high quality option? And so that's the change that we want to see. And it is critical because I came across some research recently. Economists found that when a child is, kindergarten age, has access to a high quality kindergarten teacher, their life economic prosperity grows by tenfold. They actually have an opportunity to earn up to $320,000 more than their peers that don't have access to that high quality K teacher.
So just emphasizing that's a quality kindergarten teacher.
It's a quality kindergarten teacher. It is access to quality education. And so when we talk about choice, we have to make sure that that conversation includes quality choice options.
All right, Jeff, so speaking of quality choice options, any alternative programs you've seen out there that either are successful, repeatable, and really address the issue of poverty?
Yeah, definitely. So we've been talking about the social determinants of education, and I think that one model that really comes to mind that I think is showing a lot of promise in different states and with different legislation packages that make it possible is community schools. So the idea that the school is a community hub that helps identify needs, that helps support families and connects those families with community-based resources. I think that there's an opportunity here in our state with our closed loop referral system and making sure that a teacher or a social worker or a nurse is able to identify those needs and connect those families directly to resources through an online platform, a closed loop referral system. But more than just one program or one approach, I think what we're seeing is that we're living through a phase in our history, really, where we're beginning to rethink this old industrial education model and beginning to dream up a new vision for what that education system can be. And from what we're seeing is that new education system needs to capitalize on teaching our kids how to think, how to problem solve, how to collaborate with one another, and also how to leverage technology and tools that are at their disposal that they're going to leverage with or without our guidance.
Yeah, there's a lot of momentum there around some of those innovative changes you've been talking about. Stephanie, one of the things that stood out to me this season was the need to educate families on the importance of post-secondary education and the work that you guys are doing. Talk about that.
Absolutely, it is so critical. I think, especially in today's economy and coming out of the pandemic, we were having a conversation this morning with our colleagues and our friends at Bank of America about the needs in the community. And this issue came up about how are we educating our community to understand the economic importance of attaining a post-secondary education. And in today's economy, when there are job opportunities that are offering, high school degreed individuals to enter the workforce and make $25 an hour, $30 an hour, that sounds like a good option rather than going into debt and pursuing a college degree, which, let's be honest, it's an expensive upfront costs to families. And I think what we are doing and what our community partners and colleagues in the work are doing are talking about the economic return on investment. And we also have to be more mindful about how are we making college affordable and accessible, and making sure that families know what financial opportunities are available to them. And so I think as we are having these conversations, it is absolutely critical that we educate our students, but I think for us, what we have seen is just the absolute critical role that parents play and caregivers play in being the ones that can create access to opportunity and expand those opportunities within their families. When you give them the information, they will run with it. Our Parent Educator Academy is showing that. And so the more tools that are at the disposal of our community, the more that they're going to leverage them.
So Jeff, let's talk about some of the risks we're facing here, locally, nationally, globally. As Stephanie was just mentioning, there's this new knowledge economy we've been talking about. So if those skills are undeveloped, what are the risks here?
Right. So the risks are varied and they're very real, right? So let's start in the more micro level. If you don't have access to education or opportunity, then you're probably going to be suffering from economic instability. So you have parents that are suffering through poverty, and not just the lack of things or lack of access of things, but the instability that it introduces to family dynamics, to having to go from one house to the next house, from one apartment complex to the next, from one school to another school, from job to job. It becomes really difficult for a child to thrive in that environment, right? So that's the family unit. But then as you have more families within a community, you have a whole community that's being disrupted. And we're seeing communities that have lack of access of this opportunity, where they are not thriving like other communities that we see around the state. And the disparity is just getting larger, and that's just this state. But as we think about national consequences, our country was founded on the idea that we needed an educated populace to be able to grapple with really difficult political issues. And if we don't educate our people, we're going to get stuck on this race down the brainstem, where we're just fighting against one another, not dialoguing, not creating solutions, just creating fear within our population. Now, internationally and globally, what we run the risk of is irrelevancy. So in the 1930s, we invested in eradicating poverty and really supporting the middle class, which gave rise to a golden era of the middle class in America, which we manifested into becoming a superpower within the world. But if we just rest on our laurels, other countries are going to catch up and are going to make us irrelevant. Right now we're seeing Finland has invested in its education system, creating one of the best education systems in the world. South Korea right now is leading in technological advancements because of their investment in education. And even Singapore, quietly, they've become a global center for finance and business, threatening our position as a superpower in the world. So educating our kid, every single kid, has international consequences.
You know, we've been doing this series now for 2 years, and you can go back and watch some pretty incredible episodes, some pretty mind-blowing discussions. So, question for both of you, and Stephanie, I'll start with you. Any misconceptions maybe that now that you've been working in the space for so long, or maybe myths that you had that, or perspectives that may have been shifted now that you've been doing the work when it comes to social determinants of education?
Yeah, I think it's, I would say that there's this larger misconception in the community, and I think it's still very prevalent in education and across the country in other sectors, that parents from low-income households, Latino parents, parents of color, just don't value the education of their children, and so that is why they don't actively engage or participate in their children's educational journey. And I think I'm on a mission, we are on a mission to myth bust around that, because all of our programs are actually proving that wrong, right? Our parents are engaging in our Parent Educator Academy at 90% weekly attendance. They're graduating at 95%. Every cohort, from when we had 30 to now we're running cohorts of over 100, and our team is maintaining those numbers. And so our parents absolutely care they need guidance and support and resources. And I say this humbly as a school board member myself, leading a very large urban system of Phoenix Union. We do a lot of really great things at Phoenix Union, but family engagement is an Achilles heel for us. It is not something that we do well. And so we have to get better at how we build authentic relationship with parents and caregivers, because when we do, to Jeff's point earlier, when it becomes about shared responsibility and shared accountability, it is no longer us versus you. It is, we're all in this together and we're here to help kids. And when the adults can align on that, guess what is going to happen? Academic achievement's going to go up. So I think we're seeing that, and I'll let Jeff expand on the leadership that is coming out of the work that we're doing with parents.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Steph. So we have this past year with our amazing organizer, Liliana Hutchinson, we've been working with families in the Roosevelt School District. And we've been grappling, well, we always knew the community has amazing leaders, and all we had to do is do a little bit of work in developing stories of self, us, and now, and developing an organizing framework. But we knew that the parents, that the moms, that the dads were there, that they're invested in their child's education. One of the misconceptions that I kind of walked into the work with was when we started developing information, one-pagers and flyers, saying the literacy rates and the math proficiency rates within school districts, because then it becomes really real. When you see that only 2 out of 10 students are reading at their grade level, it could be disheartening. Mm-hmm. So there was a big part of me saying that, wow, like if we make this data available and if we teach parents about what's going on, they're going to want to burn it down. They're going to want to start throwing rocks and dismantling that school system because it's not performing the way it should. But what I was reminded of in our work with the community is that parents have a strong association with their local school. It's part of their identity, it's part of their history. And they don't want to burn it down. They want to work hand in hand with the school board, with the superintendent, with their local teacher, and make sure that we're building up the education system that our children need. So I've been reminded of the amazing leadership that we have within our community every single day.
And if I can just add, because like one of my favorite stories this year, Mom Xochitl Rodriguez, one of our leaders in Roosevelt, she actually testified in front of the White House Commission on Education this year when they visited earlier this fall, and provided her testimony from a place of like strength as a formerly undocumented mother with an undocumented daughter. And now she has 6 children between Roosevelt and Phoenix Union, and the challenges that they face. And I think when parents can lean into their personal experiences and speak from a place of power and strength, it moved everybody in the room. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it right now, because it was so inspiring to see like, hey, she's asking for support because she just wants what's best for her kids. And it's not about burning the system down. It was about like, what are we gonna do together? Like, I'm here for my kid. I need y'all to be here for my kid. Like, let's do this together and let's lock arms. And that's the beauty of the work that we're doing at All in Ed. So I'm very proud of that.
And that ties into what you were just saying, and I want you to say it again, because when I heard it for the first time, you said family engagement is your Achilles heel, right?
Yeah.
I want that to be a big takeaway. I mean, the way you said it just hit me.
I've been saying this for years at Phoenix Union. We do a lot of incredible work. But when it comes to authentically building relationship with parents and caregivers, I think it is oftentimes the last thing that's added to a teacher's plate, and guess what? It's the first thing that falls off. When teachers are so, overwhelmed with doing their teaching and learning duties, or when a principal is busy running a school, or when a superintendent is busy running a school system, it is the last thing that falls off. And so I think what we have seen where it's more effective is when schools and systems actually invest in full-time roles that are only dedicated to community and family engagement. And that kind of investment takes resources. It is the strategy of what Roosevelt is doing. We are putting dollars behind that at Phoenix Union now. And so knowing that that's what it's going to take, And our colleague Danny reminds me of this, is that there is a difference between family involvement and family engagement. And traditional models of family involvement say, like, we're going to have parent-teacher conferences and parents need to come to us to have the conferences, or, you know, we're going to have the X event at the school and parents come to us. And that just, it doesn't work for everybody, right? So if we are involved, and Danny likes to say this is like a relationship. When you are involved with somebody, you're dating, you're getting to know each other, but when you're engaged to someone, you're in a real relationship with them. And so we want to move from, like, we're not just here to be friends, like, we're here to be in a real, involved, committed relationship together in the interest of serving children.
All right, you got us all fired up. You got the community leaders in the room fired up, watching online. Call to action time, and we can do this in a couple of ways. We can do it based on what we were just talking about, or kind of wrapping up the season as a whole. So Jeff, we'll start with you. Call to action for community leaders.
Sure. So the call to action right now really is, again, we have to come together. And I know that's, you know, very Pollyannish and very simplistic, but I think about chronic absenteeism. We're seeing chronic absenteeism at rates that we've never seen them before locally, in local school districts across the state and really across the nation. So this is a very important moment to rethink why people are being chronically absent. And sure, a portion of that reasoning might be because of the social determinants of education that we talk about, but also I think that the data shows is that people are decoupling from their school system. There's a widening distance between what families want from the education system and what education systems are providing our families. We see this in the move from charter schools, or the rise of charter schools. We see it in the rise of private schools, micro schools, ESAs, everything under the sun, right? I think it behooves us, and not only behooves us, but it's our responsibility as the business community, as the education community, and as the advocate community to come together and rethink what education is and what it can be. Now, I want to add that one of my old mentors, Petra Falcón, she used to call that conspiring together, but not in the bad sense of conspiracy, but in the root sense of the word, right? Con meaning coming together, and spire meaning breathe together or agree on something. So how can we all come together and agree on something? Luis Avila, our the board chair of our organization, he says that we're living in somebody else's dream, right? Other people came together and dreamed something up, and we're along for the ride. So if you're dreaming alone, it's just a dream. But if you're dreaming with other people around you, it becomes reality. And that's the moment that we're in right now. We have to come together and think about what that future 21st century school system looks like for our kids now.
Well said. Yeah. All right, Stephanie, end of the season, call to action time.
I mean, I want to echo what Jeff said. I think it's so important for us to recognize that it's not just on the school system. It can't just be on one entity. When the community experiences challenges in a whole way, and that's what the social determinants was all about, is that if we're going to talk about educational attainment, we can't, have a separate conversation about housing and transportation or food security. We have to get in the room with each other. And that's what was beautiful about the conversation this morning at Bank of America, is that we were all from different sectors and we were having this connected conversation with each other about how we're going to conspire together. But it is about dreaming about what we want for the future. I reflect on something that one of our board members, Maria Barquin, said to me. So she works for the Cesar Chavez Foundation, Radio Campesina, and she says, the work that you guys are doing is reminding me of Chavez's Commonwealth Address from 1984. I was 4 months old when he had this address, and he was talking about how it was going to be, the social change when you educate the person, or when you teach a person to read. You can't uneducate somebody who has learned to read. You can no longer oppress the people that feel empowered. And he was dreaming about today. He was dreaming about the future farm, the children and the grandchildren of farm workers from back then. I am the daughter of a former farm worker. My dad was and my mom were both farm workers in Yuma. That is how my family came to this country. And now I'm in a position to create the change, and we can collectively dream about what the next generation should look like for Arizona, and that's what's exciting. And it's just like, yes, it's hard, but I never want people to walk away from this feeling hopeless, because when we do come together, there's so much hope and opportunity.
Hard to walk away from a conversation with you two feeling hopeless, that I promise you. Congratulations, guys, on all the great work you guys are doing. And we want to thank all of you for watching Sepas. We know a lot of the community leaders out there watching these episodes have acted on your calls to action. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Stephanie. I know we want to thank our sponsor for making this series possible.
Incredibly grateful to the Garcia Family Foundation for continuing to support. They invested in this work and were the reason why we were able to host these episodes in these series, so really grateful to them.
So thank you all for tuning in to our final conversation of the season on how poverty is the greatest barrier to student success and outcomes. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.